This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Teider. My guest today is Hilary Truong. Hilary is based in the USA. She is just outside of Philadelphia. She's a former therapist for teen girls and now a mother-daughter relationship expert. And she's on a mission to rewrite a narrative for mothers and daughters. Hilary found me on Instagram and I am super, super happy she did. Hilary, hi and welcome.
Hi, Anna. It's so nice to be here.
I'm very excited about our conversation. We're dealing with a similar or the same topic, but from different angles. I have a story about how I landed with this topic. I'm curious to hear how did you get to it?
Yeah, we do have different angles. So I was a therapist for 15 years and I had a focus on teen girls. And in that work, I would, see 5 teen girls after school every day. And over, I would watch these girls come into my office and leave their mom in the waiting room and really not want to have anything to do with her. And at the same time, their relationship was struggling. Their mom wanted support. They wanted answers. And meeting with me alone didn't feel like enough. As a trained family therapist, I never learned anything about the mother-daughter relationship in any of my schooling, any of my training. And I decided I need to understand the dynamics in this relationship to be able to help better, because there's a reason why this is happening and none of us know how to deal with it, how to help the mothers and daughters come together. So I spent a good time doing research and working with experts in the field and brought it back to my work. And now I teach mothers essentially how to be their daughter's therapist. I transfer my skills to them so they can have a strong relationship versus this girl having a strong relationship with me and me knowing everything happening in their life and helping her. I wasn't doing anything for the future of their relationship. And, what I was sending them out into life, not having the skills together. So now I teach mothers how to do that themselves. I do that through private coaching, but also speaking to groups of mothers and daughters in schools.
But you also do these beautiful trips with your mothers and daughters clients.
I do.
Tell me about the trips.
I have these travel experiences where they're essentially an immersive retreat where mothers and daughters, just one couple at a time, we choose a location and a time and we meet there and we have deep conversations and we work on the relationship, anything that is underneath that they haven't been talking about. There's always things that are shared that have never been said before. Daughters are learning about the women in their family, where they come from, getting grounded in that truth and their history. And they're sort of rewriting their own story and negotiating a new relationship for where they are at that time. And having lots of fun.
It's interesting, I just published a very, very beautiful episode today with a book author called Naomi Munawira. And she had a very, I don't like calling him difficult, but let me say complex relationship with her mom. And the most important thing I took out of the conversation was that we should listen to our mother's stories. And Naomi talked about how difficult this was when she was young and went through this difficult childhood and was hurting. And she just said it was impossible for me to, at that stage, to understand where this is coming from. But now, through a lot of therapy and different ways of, self-discovery, she's finally at the stage where she was able to sit down with her mom and said, I want to hear your story, and that was very, very healing for their relationship.
I mean, that is the biggest piece of the mother-daughter relationship, when we understand each other and we feel understood. That's where the love comes in. We can connect on a different level. We can see each other as humans. Like, for her to understand, this is why. How could my mother have possibly done it any differently?
Exactly.
When this was her experience? This is all she knew. right? And there are times in a daughter's life where it's hard for us to accept that's my mother's best. I need better, right? But as we grow and learn, she's human. She's not perfect. She's had her own struggles, and we're able to see this was the best she could do. And the empathy just comes in. And it really is important to have empathy in the mother-daughter relationship. It's not something that's always natural during the teen years, which is why I work to really bring it to the forefront and to have daughters see their mothers as humans before anything else.
But also through this, in the meantime, 115 interviews I've conducted, I heard many times about this beautiful moment of connection and understanding that happens when the mom tells her daughter, look, I know I'm not perfect. I'm just a human being. I know I made mistakes. I know I maybe hurt you. But please, I want you to know that I always did the best I could. And I keep on hearing about this moment where the mom acknowledges that maybe I've done some things wrong. I'm sorry about this, but I want you to know that I did the best I could, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, having your mom say that, I think that can heal so much, to understand that she gets it, right? That's where that understanding comes in, is she is able to admit, I didn't get everything right, even though I wanted to, but I didn't. And it's another piece that I think parents of younger daughters can be doing now. And I think apologizing for when we get it wrong, taking accountability, right? I think it is easier for our generation to do that because we've learned it's something we absolutely needed from our parents.
Hilary, I want to ask you about, because we just spoke about teenage girls and you've been working with them for so long. I just read the sad news from overseas about CDC ringing the alarm bells about teenage girls in the States that are having trouble with depression and suicidal thoughts. I read that every fifth teenage girl in the States is troubled with deep depression or suicidal thoughts. What is happening? Do you have an opinion or a comment on that?
It's disturbing to see that. However, I knew it was happening. And my hope is having that in print, having the awareness about that spread, it's going to wake parents up to what they need to do. I really do think that most of us believe when our kids become teenagers, it's normal for them to separate, to gain independence, to be on their own, right? That's where they're supposed to go. But that doesn't mean that they're meant to reject their parents and to separate from their parents. They still very much need to be in relationship. And if we're not in relationship with our kids, we're not talking to them and preparing them, our daughters specifically, for all that they're going to face, like understanding consent and knowing how to navigate situations that will come up, being in touch with any mental health issues they're having, anxiety, depression. We need to be connected to their world and knowing exactly what's going on and monitoring them. When we talk about social media and phones and things like that, in order to protect them. And I think that it's something that a lot of American parents are getting wrong.
In which way? They think it's normal to separate from their teenagers and to not be involved in their lives?
Yeah. I mean, not totally not being involved in their lives, but they accept like, oh, she doesn't want to talk today, or it's normal for her to talk more to her friends than it is to me. But we don't know what her friends are sharing as far as advice, right? How are her friends supporting her? No, she needs you. She needs your wisdom. She needs your guidance. And I think that, the other part, especially as moms, is we feel this pressure of like, well, am I going to be too much if I send that email? If if I talk to this other parent, or if I ask the teacher for support, am I going to be looked at as an overbearing mother? Right. And so my message is always like, no, you got to get in there and advocate for your girl, and having conversations with her about how she can do it herself as well. But don't just totally let go. We have to hold on to them.
Here's a trick question. I'm still not there, but I'm already nervous about getting there. Kai is 8 years old. You mentioned social media. I have no idea one day when he does get on social media what this will look like. I even don't understand social media right now, even though I'm trying to be on it. Do you have any advice for parents with how to deal with this new world that's quite foreign to us, that where our children are at home at?
Yeah. And I think I shared with you, my daughter's 8 as well. And she asks me often when she's going to get her own phone. And, my answer is always to her, not for a very long time. I have no plans to introduce social media, obviously not at 8, but also I don't know that I ever really want her to have social media and have full access to, everything that comes across your screen. How do you monitor that? How do you manage that?
I know.
And, of course, kids, push back against parents monitoring and knowing everything they're doing and saying. But I think it's really important. I think that it's absolutely one way we hold on to our kids is keeping them off of social media, delaying the phones as long as possible, even though in that moment, you're going to make them so happy, it's going to lead to issues. They're going to have access to way more than they need to have. And so for me, I always go back to, in our family, this is what we do. This is how it works in our family. And like I said, I really don't have plans until at least high school for her to have a phone.
We are very surprised, that we moved to Europe a year and a half ago. We are very surprised for now how much less time children of Kai's age spend on screens here. It's doable. And I think what really matters, and many people don't think about it, is we parents also have to model that for them, because I know too many of our friends in the US who themselves constantly have their face in one screen or the other. Of course, the children, when they see that, think it's normal.
I agree. That was going to be something else I said. I think about, my daughter sees me on my phone. I have my own business. So, she sees me working or she doesn't know what I'm doing. And it is absolutely part of it is that, when she sees me doing it, that's what she thinks comes next. Like, I want that too. That thing makes you really happy. That thing has a lot of your attention. I want that as well. And so I do think that it is important for parents to also, model that and be aware of what that is making your children, desire and want in their lives too.
Hilary, let's talk about Mama. Let's talk about Mama Nancy. Will you tell me a little bit about her and her life?
Yeah, she is 73 years old, and she grew up in the Midwest in the U.S. And she would tell you she just had a really happy childhood, very simple, but 2 working parents, which wasn't, the norm at that time. Her mom worked full time as well. And she was the middle child, but in some ways the eldest daughter, because her older sister had some disabilities. And so I think it more fell on my mom as far as responsibility. And my mom moved to the East Coast when she met my dad. He was there for school. And she picked up and moved. She already had 2 children, my brother and sister. And she moved to New Jersey and started a family, and then had myself and my younger sister.
How old was she when she met your dad and had her first children?
So she was 19 when she had my brother, and had my sister in her 20s. And then she was maybe 28 or 29 when she met my dad.
Was she a stay-at-home mom or...
No, she always worked in one way or another. She's an excellent cook, and she would teach cooking classes at the community college and that kind of thing when I was a baby. And then when I was in school, she started her own cooking school out of our house and would have 10 or 12 women at a time come, and they'd sit down to a beautifully decorated table. It always had a theme, whether it was the season or often the season, but sometimes it was like Parisian or British or something like that. And then she would teach them a menu for that theme, and they would eat it, and then they would go home and cook it after seeing it demonstrated. I mean, it could have been, a cooking show. It was so beautiful and well done. And she did it right out of our dining room on Saturday mornings. I wouldn't be able to leave my bedroom while she had her classes. It was amazing watching her do that as I grew up. It really gave me permission to kind of carve my own path and be an entrepreneur and embrace that creative side. Of course, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was her passion and she loved doing it. And it was so important, for her to have that identity is outside of being a mom to 4 kids.
What happened then? Is she retired now? What is she doing?
She's retired now. Obviously she still loves to cook and does that for our family and entertains friends and things like that. That's something she really loves to do. But she is retired and no longer teaching. She used to travel to other people's houses a little bit, but she's 73. She's, she deserves a break and,
is she enjoying it?
Some quiet time. Yeah.
That must have been a difficult life, quite a lot of work for children and trying to run a business on top of that. Was your dad helpful?
Sometimes. He also had his own business and in some ways didn't entirely support my mom's business. It was really on her, which is why when she had a class on a Saturday morning, he wasn't taking us out and doing things with us to get us out of the house. He would let her figure that out. That childcare situation was on her, whether we were there or, she found something else for us to do. So no, I watched my mom balance a lot growing up, handle a lot. And she was often overwhelmed, but she would hardly complain. And I might only know she was overwhelmed because she was tired or just because I could see how many things she was doing. She would wake up so early to teach her classes. She would just be exhausted afterwards. But it was important to her, obviously, the income for our family, but it was something that she loved to do. She wasn't going to sacrifice her passion for like a 9-to-5, job that she didn't love.
Do you think there's some connection of a house filled with women bonding over food with you being a family therapist working with women?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's something I actually have determined in the last maybe 5 years is how much, without even realizing it, I've lived my mom's life in some ways. I've always worked, I've only had a few weeks off maybe, when my children were born, but I've almost always been an entrepreneur and had my own business. And that the gathering of women, and even when we talk about the inspiration of like her table settings and the hosting, that I love to do and sort of decided I want that part of my work, which is where the travel comes in. And my travel is not just going to a beautiful place or just working on the relationship. It's also having women feel totally taken care of, which is what I saw my mom do over and over. Anyone who walked into our house was just so nurtured. And I knew the importance of like greeting them at the door and taking their coat and making sure they had a drink. I mean, it's just natural. I was taught and shown how to do those kinds of things. And it may seem simple, but as women, we don't get that for ourselves as much as we deserve. We're so good at doing that for other people. But, my travel experiences, I want women to feel taken care of. Like, this is what it feels like when someone's got you like you have everybody else. And then it becomes something we can seek out ourselves and say, I need that support. I need more from my partner. I need to be doing less to others. Maybe I need to be saying no when be saying no when I mean that. So yes, my mom did teach me a lot about that entertaining piece and female relationships and inspired me to incorporate that into my work as well.
And now we beautifully segued into your mother's lessons. Do you want to share with me what else do you feel were the most important things you've learned from her? Now we learned about taking care of others.
Yeah, I think from an early age, I remember getting into these conversations with my mom about other people and the world. And I think that she really cultivated this empathetic side that I have, this sensitivity towards others and helping them. Community service was always really important to her. So we were involved in our church and volunteering together. And I think as a mother and daughter, that getting outside of our relationship and maybe what was going on between us and being there for other people really helped create kind of a bigger picture of what was happening. But also, I got to see her heart. I don't know. She just has this way of making other people feel so loved and cared for. And it showed me just how important that is, caring for others and their feelings and what they need. We would talk a lot about the family, ancestors, people in our family. And that was always something that was really interesting to me. Like, where do I come from? And yeah, just this connection with the world and with helping people. And I don't know, but at first glance, when you think about someone who teaches cooking, that might not be, empathy and helping may not be feel like a huge part of it, but it really was. She just has such a big heart and cares so much about doing maybe the right thing for other people.
And then there was the third lesson, but I have a feeling you already mentioned it. The carving your own path and being being an entrepreneur and living your creative side. Is there more you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just by watching her, right, just by seeing her do this for herself and create a job out of something that she loves and supporting her family that way, just told me that was possible, right? I was able to see it and know that's something I can do. I don't have to choose something because that's easy or makes sense. I actually went to school initially to become a teacher. This is one of the few professions I knew. I knew I wanted to work with kids. And I knew I wanted to have summers off. That's not necessarily the best way to choose a profession, right? And so I found my way. I was able to, she made room for me to make different choices and change my mind many times along the way. And she says to me, you always make it work out, right? And you always kind of find your way. And having that support and knowing that that's what she's done too. She's, connected with herself and thought about what feels good for me right now. And I'm going to do that. She's got an idea, she's after it. And I'm very much the same way.
Beautiful. Do you have more lessons, or should we talk about something she did not teach you that you find important?
In thinking about the lessons that she did teach me, it was clear that something she didn't teach me was how to take care of myself. While she's so good at taking care of others, she wasn't so great at taking care of herself. And I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. Like when she was exhausted after a class, saying, no, I'm not going to take you here, there, and everywhere with your friends. I actually hardly ever saw my mom sit down as a kid. Like if I walked into a room and she was sitting down looking at a magazine, I'd be like, what's happening? This is weird. I think that she's such a giver and loves to make other people happy that she says yes a lot. And I don't think in the moment she says yes when she means no, but I didn't learn how to set limits and tap into myself of okay, does that feel right for me right now? Do I want to do that? Yes, I want to make this other person happy. Yes, I love to, not have an issue or have any conflict come up with me saying what I need. But it's important that I say what I need in this situation and what feels good for me. I think what I learned instead was we have to think about how other people feel all the time. And it disconnected me from, well, what do I need? How do I feel?
Hilary, here's a question, because I hear this so often in my interviews. And my initial, or very often I talk to my guests and we conclude this was a generational thing. You know, the women of previous generations had such hard lives and had to break so many boundaries and do so many more things and prove themselves in so many different ways and fight, you know, so many battles that we now see won, more or less, that we tend to say the fact that they worked so hard and never took time for themselves was generational. I'm slowly wondering if it's a part of being a woman, this need or feeling that we are here to take care of everybody else, and that this impossibility to say no and put ourselves first sometimes. Do you think also it's a very female thing?
It is. I think women, I mean, for generations have filled the caretaker role. And that's kind of what we've been charged with, is to take care of others, take care of the family, make sure everything's okay, you know, at home. It's just innate unless we've been taught to look at it a different way. You know, and we know many women now, like ourselves, are, you know, working and doing the taking care of, right? And we're just kind of like expanded, but still doing a lot of that. And I absolutely do think it's female. I think it's what culture expects of us. I think also as women, our relationships mean so much to us.
Yes.
So if we can avoid, you know, conflict or consequences, we just try to make it easy for each other. You know, even this morning, I have a girlfriend who's sick, and I'm thinking about how can I support her? Right. But I'm like, I'm taking care of me. I'm taking care of my family. I'm taking care of my work. Right. And that's something her partner might do. Right. Of course, you want to have friends that you're leaning on. But as women, we're just so in tune with what does somebody else need. So I do think when we start to have conversations about how we've neglected ourselves and how sort of the world has kind of raised us to neglect ourselves, we can push back against that and create more balance and tap into what we need and less of what everybody else needs of us.
And I'm raising a son, you know, but I'm thinking I want to normalize these things for him, that mom, it's not always mom who's going to do these things, you know, and that mom sometimes needs to lie down or have her peace, or, you know, I think it's important for him. So one day he knows how to treat his partner and allow her space and understand that we have these needs to take care of ourselves sometimes too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if your son does this, but my kids, their dad might be in the same room and I'm on the other side of the house and they're saying, Mom, you know, they need something. They're just looking past this other parent that's right there with them. I think what kids, yes, it's important for him to see you doing that. He can learn so much, and just children can learn so much by seeing their father taking care of their mother in that way. Like, what do you need? You look tired. Why don't you go lay down? Right. And they learn, we pay attention to how, especially for boys, we pay attention to how other people feel. Right. And we ask them, we check in on them. We show care in that way. We don't want kids to feel that responsibility to have to care for us, of course, but we would like them to understand that we have those needs that need to be looked after.
Hilary, is there anything else you'd like to add? I know it's a big topic.
It is. I think we covered so much.
I know we did.
You know, so many pieces of both the mother-daughter relationship and our moms. You know, actually, I did want to go back because sharing something that I feel like I didn't learn from my mom is not in any way to say that she was not doing her best, because I know she was, and she is, and she always will. And the piece about, you know, it's just something we don't know is so important, because, you know, it goes back to what we were saying before about we have to look at our mom, like the mother-daughter relationship can be like a lesson in history of, you know, what generation was my mom growing up from, and what did she learn from her mother? What were her mother's experiences in life that, you know, where she wasn't able to teach her daughter or know to teach her daughter? I mean, my mom says a lot that when I was a kid, there was only one parenting book out there. Right. And so it was talking to your friends and trying to figure it out together. how do we do the best that we can if they were even doing that in that generation of parenting? And, now we have access to so much more. We're so much more evolved. I think, continuing to have these conversations and learn and know that you're doing your best, but we do better when we know what happened, when we understand, who came before us and what happened.
Hilary, thank you again. We will post links to your website and your Instagram in episode notes, so any listeners who are curious about you and your work can find you there. And thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Tider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.